Hello, everyone. Welcome to Faces of DiEM, the DiEM25 segment where we will meet and chat and get to know some of the amazing people that make up the rich human tapestry that is our transnational political movement. In DiEM25, because of, well, the kind of people that we've managed to attract into the movement, big leading thinkers in their fields, philosophers, economists, politicians, high-level activists, and so on, academics, you name it. It often, when they speak on behalf of the movement, or indeed when somebody from the movement speaks to them, that is the kind of media attention that the movement receives. So whenever somebody who doesn't know DiEM comes across it, they come across it because DiEM was speaking to Slavoj Žižek, or because Yanis had taken the floor in yet another event or whatever have you. And it gives the impression that DiEM25 is a movement of big brains, big wigs. And the reality is that the vast majority, 99.9% of our members are normal everyday people, who came across DiEM at some point, loved the vision for an alternative radical Europe that the movement was putting across, and decided to join us and help us fight for that vision and make it happen, make it a reality. So in Faces of DiEM, what we'll be doing is we'll start moving the focus, moving the attention away from just the big brains and into other big brains who are lesser well known, our activists on the ground, our grassroots organizers and so on, who really help make DiEM25 what it is. They are the lifeblood of our movement. So that's Faces of DiEM, and this is the first episode. What you saw was a trailer for a documentary that we are preparing that documents the work of our members in Greece who came together in 2016 around the DiEM movement, and then also engaged in the electoral element of our project in Greece, Meta25, our political party in the country, which is now in parliament, thanks largely to the work that our nameless heroes, our activists, our volunteers put into this effort. So let's see which faces we will be introducing to you today. We can bring them into the room, I think, and I will introduce you to them. First, we have Venita Linardou. Venita is an activist of ours in Patra. She studied chemistry, although her real love is actually music, as we'll find out today, I think. And she does everything else in between, apart from sleeping, I think, because she helps a lot with DiEM, she helps a lot with Meta. She does arts and crafts. She has her own music school, and somehow also manages to find time for DiEM and the work that we do. Hi, Venita, welcome.
Hello.
Hi, nice to have you here. And our second face of the day, face of DiEM, is Christina Grammatikopoulou. Christina is from Thessaloniki, born and raised, although she's lived all over Europe. She's really a poster woman for what DiEM25 stands for. She's been all over the place. She's worked all over the place. Like many of us, life has also taken her to the uglier part of the job market. She's had to work for the corporate world, something that we all have, or at least many of us have also suffered through. So, full solidarity with you, Christina. And she moved back to Thessaloniki recently. We'll talk more about that, and also joined DiEM25 and Meta25 there. So welcome, Christina. Nice to have you here.
Hi.
Hi. Right. So I've already spoken a lot, and the whole point of today is to speak to you. I would like us to go back and kind of grab the story of DiEM25 from its beginning, but from your perspective. Maybe we can start with you, Venita. Could you maybe tell us a couple of things about how you got into DiEM, how you got introduced to it, and how all of that came about?
Well, I was introduced to DiEM from my uncle. He found it first, and then we were talking about politics, and he said, well, do you know DiEM25? I said, no, I have no idea what's that. We talked and talked and talked, and then I went to one of Yanni's sorry. Anyway, Yannis was talking about some stuff in a theater or something. I don't remember.
Right.
In 2018. So I was like, I don't have anything better to do, so why not? I've already heard Yannis too many times. So I was outside and I was talking to people from DiEM. And then I realized that, you know what? They're pretty much the same as you. I mean, they think the same. You have the same political views. So why not?
But this is already quite interesting because you were already a step ahead, a lot of us, because for many of us, especially after 2015, with everything that happened in Greece, with Syriza, the referendum we had, the way that was betrayed, that for many of us, that was our political revolution, and it was totally crushed. A lot of people had believed deeply in radical change through that period with bringing Syriza into power, and after that experience really pushed them away from politics. They wouldn't even consider going to listen to any kind of political organization in a theater. Why was it different for you?
Because I think that politics is always in your life. You cannot go out. You cannot live without politics, because politics is what makes your life the way it is now. So either you close your eyes and say, I don't want to know. I don't want to be a part of anything political, but you're actually hiding and closing your eyes. Or you make a change. You have to be there to see what's happening, to see how you can change things for your own good, for the good of the people around you, for your life.
Yeah. Like,
it's just
was this
sorry.
No, go ahead.
The thing is that they are trying really hard to bring introversy to our lives. It's your problems. Nobody has the same problems as you. Nobody speaks out, or nobody listens, or I know, pick one. So the different thing that I did was that I was using my eyes to see that everybody has the same problems. So when I found people that are the same and thinking the same, that was it. That was the click.
Was this the same for you, Christina?
Do you mean the story of how I came across
your experience in politics and how you actually got engaged and involved?
Well, I had been living in Spain since 2007, and I wasn't so much involved in politics, but after 2011, we had the Indignados, and something was happening. And then Ada Colau became mayor of Barcelona. With Ada was coming from a grassroots movement that was against the eviction that were taking place almost daily during the crisis, the financial crisis in Spain. And she was someone that I really supported and I believed in, because she came with a really good program focused on the city and looking ahead and progressive. So when Ada suggested, DiEM25, and they also had organized an event with Yanis Varoufakis in Barcelona and blah, blah, I said, now this must be something interesting if she's behind that. And this is how I started following DiEM25 on social media and started to see what was going on. And suddenly this idea, and this is where I want to build on what Venita has just said, this idea that I already had that, you know, we cannot do this on our own. We have to work together on a European level, because I was seeing that my friends in Spain had some problems, and my family in Greece had certain problems with what was going on. And it was obvious that we all had to fight together on a European scale, but at the same time, they were trying to divide us and create, you know, borders that weren't there. So that's when I saw DiEM, I thought, what a great idea. Someone is doing something about it. Someone is organizing, you know, and when I say someone, I don't mean, you know, these big names, as you said in the beginning, but I mean like the people of DiEM are trying to work together to create a united front against what we were all facing.
Then this is actually quite interesting, because I think we should probably chat a bit about what that is like. You know, there are people who would look at this, what we're talking about now, and you know, there might be DiEM25 members, but they've never been actually active. They come across DiEM, they loved what we had to say, subscribe to it, they try to follow some of our conversations, they try to follow to follow some of the online votes that we do and what have you, but they haven't actually taken that step into forming a local group, going to a local meeting, organizing an event, just getting together with fellow DMers, you know. So it'd be quite interesting maybe to hear how you two started doing that, Venita.
So, you know, when I first got into DiEM, I was in Athens, so I didn't know anybody except from the few people from Athens and stuff, and my uncle. And then I got back to Patras, and just because I liked something about DiEM25 on Facebook, there was 3 or 4 people that I used to know and talk to and having coffee with them. They were already members of DiEM25. And we didn't know that. We didn't know each other, that we were at the same movement too. So it was a bit easy for me, because I had friends there. I didn't know at first, but I had friends. So we started something together. And it was we just started chatting about what do we want, how do we want to change it, or what can we do to bring more people in. So there was coffee after coffee, just conversation after conversation, and then it just happened. We started moving. We started having a lot of people, not a lot, but you know, more people than at the beginning. And then we formed a team, and then it started moving. That's how it goes.
And when you say started moving, what did that look like? Like, what did you do?
At first, there was like big event coffees, you know, big conversations that we could bring someone and talk about general stuff, DiEM stuff, but general stuff. And then we tried to do some events about the refugees, and we did 2 or 3 events, I think, including an event with Yannings, or we went out to the street and informing people about DiEM, this kind of stuff.
And was it how was that experience? You know, did you have any experience in doing that sort of thing before, the working
No,
with
sorry.
other people, any of this, you know?
Well, look, I do work with other people, but I usually pick them up, because you know, you pick the people you want to work with in my line of work. So it was a little bit I don't know, educational, I think. Working with people that you don't know, and they are from other political views, probably, and they just saw something in DiEM and came. And then it was actually nice because you put yourself in a situation to change your own self or your perspective because you want to do something that might work. So when the other part doesn't go back, you have to go back, and you're growing as a person when you work with new situations and stuff.
Exactly, and I mean, you work, you grow, especially in a way that I think we all need to grow desperately these days. And this is definitely something that Christina can wax lyrical about because of social media. The fact that we all create these little echo chambers and our little bubbles filled with media that only echoes what we think, and people that only are our friends and agree with us, or at least pretend to agree with us, even if they don't, because they're our friends. So you just create this space that is very safe and very secluded from any kind of opposition. And funnily enough, joining a political movement where you think, okay, I'd be joining a group of people that completely agree with me because we all join the same political movement, turns out actually that even that level of engagement outside of a predetermined bubble is quite an engagement in and of itself. You're already exposed to a number of people. Okay, you won't come across many fascists in DiEM, but you still will come across people who will disagree with your particular version of how things should be. Christina, you want to talk to us a bit about that? Because I know this is also something you work on as an academic.
I have worked about social media and how, as you said, they form these echo chambers. And then you don't see anything but your own views if you just stay in your little bubble. But at the same time, when we make this criticism about social media, we forget about how fluid this space is, because we're not just talking about digital space. We have the physical world and the digital space that are always interconnected. So things that start digitally, then go to the street and take new meaning, and vice versa. So when you start, okay, now our lives are completely or mostly online, but I think in regular life, you want to be more involved in the physical sense. So it's easy to burst your bubble if you want to. And I think that's how I got started in Mera25.
Yeah, tell us a bit about that when you moved
Yeah.
back to Greece and so on. It'd be interesting to
Well,
hear.
I came back to Greece a couple of years ago after being away for over 11 years. So I did have friends, as it's my hometown, but then I also felt kind of disconnected from the city. It all felt very foreign, and day-to-day life was much more difficult than what it was when I lived in Barcelona. And I wanted to just go ahead and meet more people, thinking that more or less they would have the same idea or political goals with me. And this is how I decided to join one of the meetings of Mera25 and see what they were doing, since I had been following their platform for about 2 years. And I liked what they posted. And as I said, when you meet those people, as Erik said, it's quite different, because you see people of different ages, ideas. Some of them had been politically involved in other parties earlier. Some others were rookies like me, and it was a very interesting mix of people. It kind of reminds me of these, silly animated films where the superheroes all have different powers. I mean, you can see the positive side to this. Of course, you can fight because you have different ideas, but then if you work together, maybe you can get something good done.
Yeah, like the red and the black Power Ranger and the yellow joining in
Yeah.
and forming one
Yeah.
big thing. Yeah, this is very interesting, and especially because the kind of experience that you're now describing is one of electoral politics, which is sort of one step removed from where the project started as a political movement.
Yes.
You know, the thing with DiEM really, and I think one of the important things why it started as a movement and why that was a good thing, is that a lot of people around Europe, and especially in Greece, are quite frustrated, to put it mildly, or absolutely disillusioned, at the worst, with the parliamentary democracy, you know, with parties. And they are looking for, that doesn't mean people are not political, you know, the main chunk of people around Europe who win the elections, quote unquote, are the people who abstain. You know, it's the biggest chunk right now across the continent. And that's not to say that people are not political anymore. It's to say that they don't feel represented politically by the system and they don't engage with it. And DiEM25 tries to do something different when it comes to politics. We try to approach giving people a political voice, and not just a political voice. This is important, I think, about DiEM, giving people political capital, power, because you've had a lot of political movements in the last few decades, from the Indignados and the Aganatismeni in Greece to, you know, Occupy Wall Street to you know, everything in between, even Extinction Rebellion these days, and so on, which are very loud. They go very wide, but then it's quite difficult to pinpoint exactly what kind of dent they made on the system that they were fighting. And the important thing with DiEM25 is that we joined that fight as a political movement, yes, but with eyes on the prize, with a very particular thing that we're trying to do. You know, we come with political ideas, with political solutions, and we're not shy to say that we're actually after political power. We want to get the people that got us into this mess out of the way and to replace them with better ones. And, you know, that was the movement. And then in order to achieve that, the movement at some point decided to create what we call electoral wings, you know, our political parties in different countries that we use as tools to achieve this, where we can't find any other political ally that would run with our ideas and our agenda. And in Greece, we probably have the most successful example of such an electoral wing, Mera25, Mera25, that you just spoke about. Venita, this, I won't call it a transition, because it's not a transition. The movement is still here. We are a political movement, but we have an extra tool in our toolbox. How did you experience this development, let's call it, as somebody who was already in the movement, and then Mera came about?
Well, I don't know. It was a little bit crazy at first, but you know, the one thing goes to another. So we just started conversations about how the world should be, or how European Union should be, and stuff like that. And then, bam, you have the European elections, and you have to be there. And it started running. You started as Mera25 was Mera25 was at the beginning. Nobody knows what Mera25 is. We have to be there to make Mera25 known to the people, and we were started running and running and running. And I don't know. It was crazy.
The tempo is definitely
that's the
different.
only thing I can say for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, the tempo completely changes. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. You didn't. I didn't even know what was going on. I was from the one event to another, from giving out leaflets and talking about how DiEM25 is connected to Mera25, to people that didn't even understand what DiEM or Mera was or where. So I don't know. It was funny, exhausting, crazy, But in the end, it was really, really, really good.
Do
Because
you think
you see the things from the inside. You see how much effort you have to put out with to do something. You know, when you're outside from the outside, um, you know, at the one when you're not inside. Sorry about my English. You cannot see how much effort someone has to put to just move a little thing from one place to another, because that was a very big movement for us. But it was on a general idea. It was something really, really small, just 9 people. But for us, it was a very big thing. So I will say it again. It's educational for your own self. You grow. You grow through the movement. You grow through the political, through the electoral wing. You can see how things are working, because nobody, at least not anyone I know from my city, has any experience with elections and stuff. So it was good at the end.
At the end, this is the
At the
thing.
end.
The process is you're not, and you very rarely know what you're getting yourself into. As somebody that was right there with you guys,
Yeah,
it was
I know.
you don't know what it's going to be like until you're in the midst of it, and then it's just too late. You're in it. You know, it just picks you up and takes you.
I know. There are so many things that you have to consider and do that you cannot even possibly imagine them.
Yeah, but would you say, because you said that what we achieved was, you know, in the grander scheme of things, if you zoom out and you look at the galaxy, or even if you look, you know, let's say you look at Greece, we got 3%, you know, which means though that we got into parliament. It means that 9 of our representatives are now saying the things that we were screaming about in the streets. They're now saying it inside the parliament in Greece. And, you know, because I know how much work everybody on the Zoom put into this effort. And then, you know, if you tell somebody who doesn't know the context, you know, we got in, you know, we got 3%, they'll be like, wow, you know, if their standard is like a Hollywood movie where you end with a massive explosion and, you know, they're like, wow, well done, you guys. Do you feel like it was worth it, all that effort that we put into it and the sleepless nights and, you know?
Yes, it was. But I think we have to do so much more. Because in a general scale, in a bigger scale, we are still small. We have to grow bigger, and not only in Greece. I don't mean the Mera25 only. I do mean DiEM25, because I do think that without DiEM, we cannot change a thing. We have to begin from the general to go to the specific countries or problems or anything.
I'll come back to this point because that's a big one to unpack, and thankfully we still have a bit of time. Christina, tell us about your experience of the elections. What was it like for you?
Oh, that was an interesting time in my life, because I was working at 2 or 3 different jobs at the same time, classes at the university, another project with an NGO, and then they called me up, and also I was quite heavily pregnant, and I certainly wasn't planning to run for the election, but then they called me, my friends from Mera25, and let's run together, and it will be great. We can do so much. And I told them, look, my life is rather complicated right now. And then, okay, let's make it a little bit more complicated. And I joined in the election. That was a very interesting experience. And it just went so well. I couldn't believe that it went so well. Then people were calling me and telling me, how did you get so many votes? I don't know. I had just came back from Spain to Greece and I hardly knew anybody. I created a Facebook page and that was it. But I was really excited about the result. Well, most of all because we managed to get in, and that meant that as Erik said, all these ideas that we have, all this vision, could now be heard from the parliament. I mean, okay, they won't turn into legislation, not with this government, but at least now people see what MERA is. Because, as Venita said, one of the challenges was that we had before the election was to try to explain to people within, I think it was 3 weeks, that there is this political party, it's called MERA 25 and blah blah blah, and it's grassroots and it's pan-European, and then people were looking at you and you were saying, okay, it's Yanis Varoufakis party, and say, oh, okay, because as you said, we were grassroots, yet you would have to use a big name so that people could understand what you stand for. And I think that was the big challenge for us to do it in such a short time.
Yeah. Yeah, yes, I completely agree, and with very limited resources. And I think a lot of people watching from abroad don't recognize also how much animosity there was around MERA 25 and our presence in the political scene. I remember being on a TV channel, and I'm very much the noob and the rookie that you are, and being on that panel with somebody from the Liberal Party, somebody from the Communist Party, somebody from New Democracy, the Conservative, well, far right these days, but anyway, Conservative, and Syriza, radical left once upon a time, for those of you watching us, and now the new Social Democrats, let's say. And out of all these people, the common enemy was MERA 25. We were the ones that they all could unite around, or unite around sort of opposition towards us. And that's because MERA 25 comes into the political scene, and any kind of DiEM powered, initiative comes into the scene in Europe with a very uncompromising political narrative that says that every political party right here present, whether they agree or not with how things have been handled, is in some ways part of the problem, because they do not accept the core issues behind, let's take Greece as an example, behind why Greece is the way it is, which is the fact that we have completely submitted to the Troika and to the bailout agreements. We're not a free country anymore. And all these parties that are still in government, or in parliament, they all had this in common. They have stopped trying to engage constructively with this fundamental issue for Greece. They're no longer talking about this problem. And when MERA 25 came into the political scene, we were the only ones pointing out the obvious fact that until we have a solution to, Greece's submission, Greece's enslavement, essentially, economic and political enslavement, we're not a sovereign country. We're not free. We don't have a democracy. And they all rallied against us because this narrative completely destroyed everything they had been saying from 2015 onwards. So it is a very difficult environment. And, Yanis, as being sort of one of the figureheads of the political party, there is a lot of, character assassination around him and so on. So I think a lot of people looking at what we did in Greece assume that we managed it because we had a high-profile campaign, but that high profile also meant that the effort against us, the energy and the toxicity with which we were fought was so much higher, so the job was also incredibly more difficult because of this level of how do I want to say it, this level of prominence that we had because of Yanis and the story since 2015. So I think that's important, and thank you for bringing that into the conversation. Essentially, maybe this is a bit ham-fisted, and excuse me, I mean, I am the only man on this panel, so you'd have to assume this from me, and I apologize in advance. But because you mentioned that you ran in the elections while being pregnant, do you think Mera 25, DiEM25 is kind of a natural environment for a woman to be involved in politics? Because politics very often is, I mean, I'll let you talk about politics and women. I won't, leave it completely up to you. But do you feel that Mera and DiEM offered you sort of a comfortable springboard to engage as a woman in politics?
Well, from my perspective, I think you can see the results. We're the only party in the Greek parliament where women and men are at 50-50%, as it should be. And women don't get so much elected, but even worse, when they get elected with the ruling party, they don't get put into positions of power. We have the current government of 52, 52 people in the government is one of the biggest in Europe, and yet they couldn't find but 1 or 2 places for women. This is how women are valued in politics in Greece. So there's certain things that in Mera 25, where women have like a very prominent voice, where like a high percentage, if I may say so, of the people who are members in the party. And also, when we meet, we try to make it that we get to talk 50-50. And I know for some people this might seem a little bit forced, but this is how it is. You have one woman replying to a question or asking a question, one man, because the situation is so crooked, like in a sense, in politics, women are not being heard, that you have to somehow enforce this equality. And you see the result. We did this in the organization of a party, and as a result, we had 50-50 of women being elected. So other parties could do it as well if they were interested in equality. And of course, apart from that, the politics in DiEM and what we stand for, it's also very much a feminist movement.
Thank you. And we could talk about this. I mean, we need a call just about this topic because there's so much to unpack and so on. But maybe going back to you, Venita. I don't know for how much, because I know this is what 10 years of austerity do to the internet infrastructure of a country.
No, it's okay now. It's okay. I think
good. It's good to have you back. It's good to have you back. I don't know for how much of this you were here, but we've been talking a bit about being a woman in politics, and being a woman in DiEM, being a woman in Mera, and that kind of sort of the dynamic around that. And as a Greek, I must say that Greece is definitely a fairly still patriarchal society. Let's not beat around the bush, shall we? We still have that, especially the older generations. It's still quite prominent. Would you say that that's something that you've had to deal with when participating?
Not from DiEM and Mera, of course, but yes, it's a little bit tricky to be a woman in politics. I mean, you don't seem, I don't know, manly enough. They think that we don't have the power to stand up. So, our even our families, it's something that's really traditional here. Men in the politics, women in the house. So I did saw it, I felt it, but not so much that it would get me down.
So you
And
didn't
I didn't
carry
feel
on.
it inside DiEM or Mera25 or anything. It was a really, really good environment to be. I think it's the best environment to be when you want to go on with politics or being to the elections.
Yeah, not to in any way compare it to what women have to go through, but also for me, coming to Greece and getting engaged in Greece, being fairly young at the time, I was 25, let's say, and having to run around and organize people who were multiple times my age. There is this approach also, even if you're a man, of μικρούλη, έλα εδώ, σου πω εγώ πώς θα το κάνουμε. Like this kind of attitude of like, oh, come here, lad, come here, little boy, I'll tell you how we're going to do it. And, that's it, because I'm twice your age and that's all there is to it. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter what credentials you have. It doesn't matter what your job is. I'm older than you. I have more experience than you.
Yeah, well,
and that's just another expression of what you also have to go through, I think, right?
Yeah. Because you're young, you're a woman, you're young, you're a woman. There's a certain answer.
Yeah, exactly.
The age of dinosaurs. It's over. Sorry.
Yeah, but they always eventually go extinct. We know how it goes, so we just need to be patient.
So that's it. Actually, you can say what I say to them. What I did say to them then was that maybe we should try more young people. We should let them go on and see where it will take us, because they have fresh ideas. They have another state of mind, another mindset. So let's try. Why not? And you know what, I think people really like that. They like that we have fresh ideas and fresh people that are they weren't politically involved in before Mera25. So you say, why not? Let's see what he can do.
Christina, do you want to add anything on this point? I saw you briefly unmute yourself earlier before we move on.
Oh, about feminism.
Any of the things we've been talking about now.
No, we can move on to the next
topic.
on. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the next topic is really the natural next topic, to be honest, because, we are where we are. We spoke about the movement, getting involved in the movement and the madness of the elections, completely different dynamic where, everything all of a sudden is about the next day and the next day and, getting that result in. And, we have a very particular focus. Well, with the movement, it's more open-ended. You get out of it whatever you put into it. And it's much more about your own initiatives and so on. Now with DiEM, we're creating some more concrete projects and deadlines and things like that. But it's not that hectic, manic energy of elections that might not be very good for your health and probably knock off a few years from your life expectancy. But at the end of the day, they also help you get some things done. Where do you think, now that the elections are over, Mera is there, Mera is fairly established, you get to see it here and there in the media and so on, let's start with Mera first, and we'll go to Christina with this one. What do you think are the next steps for Mera? What are the things that Mera needs to be focusing on politically, but also as an organization, as a group of people? Like, we had some questions on our YouTube chat about how the party is organized in Greece, and I know we've had new statutes there and so on. So what do you think are the next steps for Mera and how it's organized, things that it's good at, things that it can improve, that sort of thing?
I think, first of all, we have a very strong presence in the parliament, and we do make our voice heard. And our voice is so strong that they're trying to shut it up from the government. There is an active lawsuit against one of our parliamentaries, which is kind of unique in Greek history. This has never been done before, and it's now being done against us because she was talking, Adamopoulou was talking against the police state that Greece is currently turning into. And these are the results. Apparently, you cannot speak your mind up, not even if you're in the parliament. So, I think in this level, we're doing very well, and we have a very strong fight in the parliament. And but at the same time, Merit 25 is also a political party, and you have to face what the realpolitik, as the Germans say, of what a political party is, all the organization. And currently, I am a member of the central committee of the Merit 25, and we're preparing for our first conference that got cancelled due to COVID. And we're planning it for next year, and we're trying to set up what our agenda is and what our ideology is, because of course we say that we stand up for this and this and this idea, but it's not valid if our members don't vote on these ideas, and if we're not sure that what we're saying is truly representative of our base. So we work in different levels. We have, of course, the official organization of the party, the statute, and the committee that is now running to prepare for the conference. But we also have our local groups, in each city or each part of the city, if it's a big one. And we had our chat groups, and we meet together, or we used to meet before the lockdown, and discuss local problems. Because also another thing about politics, Erik discussed this, it's more easy to motivate people if it's like a local topic. And we're trying to get into the day-to-day politics of each Greek city, and follow the pulse of the people. So I would say that we work in different levels: a very local level, like day-to-day politics in your neighborhood, what the problems in your neighborhood are, to the party organization, and to the parliament, where we criticize the current politics and try to suggest new ideas and new ways of doing things.
Yes, Christina, this is especially important because, like I said, a lot of people joined DiEM in the first place as a movement because they were so sick and tired of political parties, and they didn't believe in political parties. So it's the work that you're doing for the Central Committee of MERA is so incredibly important in order to come up also with ways not to just replicate the old way of doing parliamentary politics, but thinking about how more and more people can be involved in this process and feel like they're a part of parliamentary politics in a way that is more direct, especially because in the 21st century, with the technology that we have, social media, we're so much more used to instant gratification. And of course, we shouldn't be feeding this monster too much because it's dangerous, to think that you can just get results immediately, that, there be dragons, there be Donald Trump, there be all of that stuff. But it's also important to integrate that sort of thing in the way that we do politics. So fantastic, and thank you for sharing that with us. Venita, for you, I want to maybe go in a slightly different direction, still about the future, but with a different context, because I mean, I was there. I saw it happen. When we ran the European elections and then the national elections for Mera, we had to use a lot of the resources of the movement to make it happen. You know, to use what we had already built those few years before with the movement, with the local groups, with our activists, and really push for the electoral part of our project using the same people. But now, after the electoral madness is over, the movement is still here and still needs to continue to grow, still needs to continue to carve out a piece of the political scene for itself in Greece. It's not that it has been completely taken over, but what Mera25 is doing. Mera25 is taking care of the electoral politics, the parliamentary side of making our voice heard and giving political power to what we're pushing for. But the movement also has a role to play. What do you think that role is? Where does DiEM25 come in Greece, where we already have a fairly well-developed political party that represents us? Where does the movement fit into this story, you think? Is there a space for it still?
Well, it's everywhere. I mean, Mera25 is DiEM25. Whatever we do here as an elected, as elected, we can do it on all over Europe, and we have to. And everything we say, it's a part of DiEM25. That's the key. So I think that the movement is here, still here. It has to be more active in a pan-European Union. I mean, we have to do more activistic stuff all over Europe. I mean, not only in Greece, but in Germany, and we have to do it together. Like the Make Amazon Pay movement, not movement, sorry,
campaign.
Yeah, sorry. We have to do more stuff like this, and we have to explain to everybody who's just Mera25 because of Yanis or Cleonas or whoever, that we belong to the European movement that is DiEM25, and we have to help it grow bigger and have electoral wings in every country. So then and only then we could say that we could make a difference. Just because we are here in Greece elected doesn't mean that we can change so many stuff.
It's exactly this.
I don't know. That's my opinion.
Go on.
Go on. No, you go on. Sorry.
No, please, I insist. I just wanted to say that it's exactly this realization, I think, that that made DiEM a pan-European movement and not a Greek movement or an Italian movement. We could have very easily just built something in Greece after 2015, but we chose to create something European. And that is for two reasons. One is because we need Europe. The kind of political challenges that we're facing, whether it is the refugees, financial or war refugees, whether it is the environmental collapse, whether it is global capital that is completely ruining our societies and our communities and our economies. All of these things are not national issues. They're not things that Greece on its own, or even a country like Germany on its own, could resolve. You need a united political force in order to deal with these issues. So if you're serious about dealing with any of these things, you need to have something bigger than a national level initiative, So that's part of the analysis. But the other is also the realization that if we're going to have something like a European Union, then it's our responsibility as Democrats, as people who believe in democracy, for that thing to be under our control. Fine, let's have a European Union by all means, but we need to own it. It needs to be under democratic control of the citizens upon whom it has influence. If it has influence on my life, I need to have control over it. Otherwise, I don't live in a democracy. So it's this kind of realization, which is what you've been saying essentially, that we need this kind of European approach. The fact that we've managed to get into parliament in Greece just shows that it can be done. It's a good example of us having managed it, but it's not us having won. In order for our project to be successful, we need to increase our presence and our strength in other countries. And hopefully by having these Faces of DiEM sessions where people get to meet people like you from all over Europe and hear their stories, we can add a little building block, let's say, to this effort to increase the DiEM project and make sure that what successful things we've done in different parts of Europe, we can start doing in other parts as well. For example, and I'm going to wrap up a little bit, there is a new project called, a new collection of projects called the Campaign Accelerator that DiEM is coordinating, which is essentially a hub where people can send their ideas about local campaigns that they want to run. We have a fantastic one, somebody mentioned it in the chat, about the Zagorochoria, this collection of villages in Epirus, in northern Greece, about sort of creating sustainable development for that area, which is ironically being destroyed in the name of green energy. They're trying to install wind turbines on the mountain, but destroying basically the local habitat in the process. So creating sustainable development for the area, and by creating sustainable development for it, also securing its place as a potential candidate for a UNESCO World Heritage site, the collection of the villages. So things like that, that our members come up with and are pushing. DiEM25 is always on the lookout. And we'll be having again with a Greek, but what can you do? Greeks are busy, so we're talking to them a lot. We'll have an episode of Faces of DiEM with Andreas, who is coordinating this. So this kind of answers one of the questions on the chat. So you will hear much more about this campaign very soon, because we'll be talking to Andreas about what he's been up to. And is this sort of thing that, again, also answers another one of the questions in the chat about the sort of things that our members in Greece are trying to get re-engaged on, like Venita said, to stay active, be everywhere, not just relax because we have Mera elected, but to continue this kind of work. I wouldn't want this amazing chat that we've had, and it's entirely amazing because of the things that you've been saying, to end with me. I would much rather it ended with you. So maybe, what can I ask? Okay. If you could give one advice to people who are considering getting involved and are like, I'm not sure, my sofa is so comfortable, or it's so cold outside, or yeah, with the pandemic, I don't know what's possible, like probably wait and see, or people who are like us, follow DiEM, but are hesitating. They're like, I'm not sure this is for me. What would you tell them to come join you for a drink and to start like organizing the revolution with you? Like, what is something that you would tell them to encourage them? Let's Christina, maybe let's start with you.
I would tell them that it can get you into unexpected places. You just go for a meeting to see what's going on, and then you're running for election. But that's an extreme case. But I think that you can get a lot done, especially on a local level. And it will be the beginning of an adventure. That will be my selling
Great.
point.
Venita?
I would say that when you do that, at the end of the day, you feel alive because you did something. You're not only thinking it, but you're actually doing something, even if this is talking to another person who is like you, or go to a campaign, or talking about DiEM or Mirror 25, I don't know, with some stranger on the street or in the bus. At the end of the day, you feel like you did something. You're not completely out of it, or just thinking it in your mind. You did something, and when you do something, you do feel alive. That's it. for me.
Great. Fantastic. I couldn't have wished for a better ending. So thank you both so much for being here. Thank you for all the amazing work you're doing. And to everybody who's watching us, who's doing similar incredible things around Europe, thank you so much for everything you're doing for the movement and for the cause. And those of you who are not yet, listen to Christina and Venita and, join DiEM and come with us on an adventure. Carpe diem. Thank you very much. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more Faces of DiEM next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.